Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 22nd monthly talk that the Rail Enthusiast Society has organized. Today's speaker is Apurva Bahadur. I don't think he needs any introduction, but if by some chance there is someone who does not know him, I will give a brief introduction. See, I know Apurva only since 2014. That is when I was introduced to him, and he had introduced himself as a photographer who likes photographing trains against picturesque backgrounds. Based in Pune, the Shindhavne Ghat and the Bhor Ghat were in his backyard. And he probably knows both these areas like the back of his hand. What I learned later was that it is not that he just photographed, but every photograph that he took, he went into the history and geography and everything else about that photograph. As a result of that, apart from having an extremely good collection of photographs, he also has an extremely good knowledge of all the photographs that he has taken. So I won't keep you between Apurva and his talk. So over to you, Apurva.
Yes, sir. I'll just share my screen. Can you see the full screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this is my talk. We have previously discussed the lower part of Bhor Ghat. Now, in this particular session, we are going to discuss the upper part of Bhor Ghat, the first 8 kilometers from Lonavala end. And this talk is a rail fan's perspective. I'm not from railways. I do not have insider information, but we are going to discuss the upper part, because when we started looking at Bhor Ghat as a subject, we realized that it's too vast a subject. Now, I keep talking about we because the entire thing that you see is a joint effort by a few rail fans. So although that paucity of time prevents me from mentioning their names individually, but the point is that it's their efforts, it's our joint effort which has enabled this presentation. So it may look as if I am giving a presentation alone, but I have with me a lot of rail fan friends who have similar mindset, and they're willing to contribute to a project. And ultimately, whatever you see here may result in a public domain document or a book. So we're just trying to collect the information. In fact, the very next 2 or 3 outings are planned, because we have enough material for about a 6-hour presentation. So I've done lower Bhor Ghat, this is the upper Bhor Ghat, and then we'll see. So let's look at the this particular view is from a place called Kune village, Kune, which is opposite to the Bhor Ghat. Now, Bhor Ghat is actually it runs on the side of a river called Ullas. Now, Ullas is what emerges in Mumbai as a kilometer-wide creek. I think it is Vaitarna. No, it is it is the Vasai Creek, which is which starts the trickle in Lonavala. So this is the view from across the Ullas River Valley of ancient viaducts, which have been around from 1880s, and they are in use every day. There are 2 tracks on these things, and this is the Yashwantpur Barmer Weekly Express. And it's to the tribute of the engineering in this section that such old structures are in use every day, fully loaded trains. First of all, the word called Ghat, that Ghat is a mountain pass. I have to make this disclosure because normally if you look at Ghat, it's steps leading into the river, but there's also another definition, which is a mountain pass. And Bhor, this is the visual problem of Bhor Ghat. This particular image is the image from Khopoli, which is 60 meters from sea level. And this is where the train has to go. Again, what I'm showing you here is not the end of the Ghat. The end of the Ghat is another 145 meters above this, and another 7 kilometers further. This is lower than Khandala, and this is the reversing station, which was demolished in 2000 during the COVID shutdown. and it was a historical structure which shouldn't have been demolished, but in the middle of shutdown when nobody could go to the High Court, they just went and demolished it. If a person like me who knows very little about civil engineering can tell you that you can build a highway in a different alignment and not to disturb a heritage structure, but India being India, nobody cares for the heritage. And this structure was demolished, very sadly demolished. I feel very bad about it. And just to allow more road vehicles to use this section. As mentioned, the end of the Ghat is another 7 kilometers and 145 meters ahead of this. So in 27 kilometers, the train has to climb this height, which is 625 meters to Lonavala. And this is the challenge, because the material that we are talking about is steel on steel, and then you don't have much coefficient of friction, so you have to take the gradient gently. This is a stick map of the area, and just to give you an overview of what the section that we are covering. Previously we had covered Palasdhari to Jamrung, or say Karjat to Jamrung Cabin. That is the lower Bhor Ghat section. And so 2 tracks come from Kalyan. 1 track comes from Panvel. This is a new track built in 1990s, which goes to Konkan Railways. And from Jamrung, basically Bhor Ghat has got these 2 giant mountains. One is called Natsa Dongar and another is called Bhoran Preto. Yes, please.
नहीं अभी नहीं हो सकते हैं, लेक्चर होता है.
Okay. Yeah.
1 घंटे के बाद.
Okay. At Jamrung, the old set of tracks went on the north flank of these 2 mountains, and they emerged at Thakurwadi, which is 1 cabin. Then you have Monkey Hill, which is another cabin. Then it goes to the station called Khandala. Then it goes to Lonavala. Then it becomes back to 2 tracks and it goes towards Pune. In 1980, to increase the track capacity, Railways built another track on the southern flank of these 2 mountains, and it is only for descending trains. Now, in railway parlance, any train which is going away from the headquarters is called the down train. So a train which is climbing the Ghat is actually the down train. So the left-hand most track is the down track, and it continues to be so. The middle track in this section, so here there are only 2 tracks. The middle track is a bidirectional track. So in an ideal world, the climbing trains will use the down track, the descending trains will use the up track, and the bankers, which I will talk to you later, which are the locomotives which push the trains up the Ghat, use the middle track to keep the down and mid track, the down and up track clear. But it doesn't always happen like that. So sometimes the mid track is also used by trains in both directions, depending on the track, depending on the amount of traffic that there is and congestion there is. Generally, this particular new track via Nagnath is gentler in slope. It is longer in distance. So freight trains are generally taken on this section. And the faster trains use the route via Thakurwadi. There are 2 features which I've shown in this map, that there is something called service tunnel. Now, if a train comes, Nagnath by itself is isolated. You know, this if you walk to Jamrung and walk back to Thakurwadi, it's about 10 kilometers. And it's actually the flank of the same mountain, both sides of the same mountain, which is Natsa Dongar. So there is a service tunnel which is built into the catch siding. And in case you're taking the Deccan Queen, like we were just planning for a trek in a few days, in maybe next month, after the rains sort of stabilize. So we were just discussing that does the Deccan Queen stop at Monkey Hill or not? So if it does, I will be able to get out and I will be able to walk this section. But in case it takes this track, it will not stop, which I will tell you later why it doesn't stop. you would have got down here and walked through this service tunnel and then got to Thakurwadi. So this service tunnel is in the mountains, but it's at the top of the cat siding, which again, I'll explain to you what the cat siding is later. Another feature which I've mentioned here is something called Gambhirnath Caves. Now, it's very strangely, Natsa Dongar is here. So the cave should have been, or this should have been called Gambhir, this should have been the Gambhirnath, this should have been the Natsa Dongar, but this is called Bheda Tikadi in Marathi, or Bheran Plateau. Now the British had a penchant for naming places after their what sounds familiar to them. So Bheran Plateau, they tried unsuccessfully to call it Brennan Plateau, but Brennan didn't work. So it is back to be called Bheran Plateau. So this is the imposing hill that you see, the mountain that you see when you leave Khandala. As soon as you are on the highway and you head out of Khandala station, you'll be able to see Bheran Plateau ahead, which I will show you the views later on. So this is about a stick map of the area. 3 tracks, one dedicated for climbing trains, that is the down train, one dedicated for descending trains, and one is a midline which is bidirectional. And at Palasdhari, you also have a single track which is bidirectional to Khapoli, which was the oldest track in India. The earlier on, the first trains in India started from Mumbai, they came to Khapoli. I mean, of course, the inaugural train went to Thane, but the regular services came to Khapoli. By that time, Khandala to Pune tracks were ready. So, or even further, maybe to Solapur or something like that. So, people would go to Khapoli, then get into a palki or sit on a horseback, palanquin, or walk, and they would climb all the way to Khandala, and then they'll reboard the train which is already ready. There's a big history of how railway was built ahead of Khandala, taking the locomotives on the old cart road by road. And it required something around 35 oxen to pull the locomotive on the road all the way to Khandala and commission it there. And all the material, because all the material would come by sea from Mumbai, and then it would be taken to Khapoli and then taken ahead. By that time, this Ghat section was under construction. We're talking of 1850s, 1860s, around that time. Okay, let's get into action. We are talking about gradient and power. Now, the problem in Ghat section is that you're looking at one side is your sea level, and other side is 660 meters. So this is an ancient map, a GIPR map showing the gradient. And this is the zoomed out view, like Mumbai is 0, it is at sea level. And by the time it comes to Karjat, you are at about 40 meters above sea level. And then the climb starts at Palasdhari, Thakurwadi, Khandala, Lonavala. And this is the sort of gradient, and these numbers, this 25, 30, 35, 40 is the miles number. Miles is 1.6 kilometers from this place, from Kalyan. So this is 30 into 1.6 is Karjat. So you can see the gradient profile of this. I will also try to get you a modern version of this map and redraw it with my own hand so that intellectual property belongs to me. That I will do. While studying this map, I was a little amazed to see that Lonavala is not the tallest point. There is one point here which is even taller than Lonavala, which is in fact the maximum altitude that you have in the railway line on this section, and that is somewhere near Kane of today, near Talegaon. So there is this section. I'm not able to read the text clearly because I have a very poor quality map, but I'll get the current map sections from one of our friends in railway, and then we'll update this information. So that was the gradient of the section. We are looking at the problem, like I told you, is the gradient and the friction of steel on steel. Now, railways is a very efficient way of transportation. It is the most efficient way of transportation on land because the friction is low. So for a low energy, you can move a lot of load at a fairly high speed and do so effortlessly because the driver is not in charge of steering. So that helps, and the system is very successful. It's only more efficient by water transport, which is, for the same power you can haul a very large load. So how railway achieves it is, of course, I'm talking to the wrong audience. We've got like absolute experts sitting in the audience, but for the general public, the coefficient of friction between steel rail and steel wheel is very low. So the problem is when you have when you're walking on slippery ground, the problem is again coefficient of friction, because you may slip and fall down because you are not able to connect with the ground. So that's what happens here, that when a train is trying to climb the altitude, there is a limit after which the train could just slide down even if the wheel is not rolling. So that point is around 1 in 36, 1 in something. So the ruling gradient throughout the Ghat is 1 in 37. And that is the way this particular Ghat section is built. And this is a view of Khandala. And this is a Pune bound BTPN tanker rake, which is climbing, and you can see the altitude it has to crest before coming to a somewhat level ground. And as in all places in Indian Railways, a lot of people exchange flags with each other, or a green light during the night hours into the dark hours. So basically, the station master, the assistant driver on this, then the driver on the other side, then another person standing there, the guards van at the back, 3 banker locomotives behind. Everybody's got, they're looking out at the rake and they're checking that everything is okay. In case they notice anything wrong, or if they have a problem, then the red flag will show, and the train would stop. So basically, they are checking that there is no smoke coming from the brake blocks. You're not hearing anything unusual, like a bearing which is about to fail, so it is screeching, or you're not seeing a wagon which is slightly tilted, which may be due to derailment or a failure of a suspension element. So everybody is very vigilant when a train passes through, and they're looking at all the aspects of their train, they're inspecting it as it passes, and they say, okay, this is okay. This also means that the section is clear. So it's a sort of reassurance for everybody that things are fine with the train as well as with the station. Another oddity that you will see is generally Indian Railways asks their people to hold the red flag in their preferred hand. Now, I would leave the discussion of what's to be done with left-handed people, but you will find that the green flag is always held in the left hand and the red flag is always held on the right hand, so that in case there is a problem, you're always ready to lift the your preferred hand, which is the right hand. I don't know what the rule for the left-handed people is, but I'll find out. This is another view of Khandala in the evening hours. This is a train to Bhubaneswar, Konark Express. And these are absolutely fantastic places to go to. And they are good in any weather, during rains, during morning, during evening, in the night time, in the heat of the day, because they're so beautiful. And this is just an example of how it looks. And this is also showing the gradient which is climbing into the Khandala station. This is another snapshot of life in the Ghats. A lot of families live in Khandala, but the kids go to school in Lonavala, which is some 5-6 kilometers away. And so they take a train like the Koina Express. Very surprisingly, that I'll come to one feature of Khandala is that all trains, all railway vehicles towards Mumbai have to stop here for a safety check. But very few trains stop in the direction of Pune. So the train which is coming after this freight train is Koina Express, and the kids take Koina Express to go to their school in Lonavala, and evening they probably take Deccan Express or one of these trains and come back to their homes. So this is one of the snapshots that you have on a daily basis at Khandala if you're at the right time. This is a view of the next station, Lonavala. What you see here is this is the Bangalore bound Udyan Express coming into the station. What you have, the Bhor Ghat ends here. So it starts at Karjat and it ends at Lonavala. Um, it was built in around 1860s, 1870s, when GIPR and the British government decided that we needed a railway link to transport raw material and goods from India onto the port of Mumbai. So that was the main reason, and also military reason that anyway, the reason is to connect Mumbai with the rest of the country in the southeast direction. So Mumbai to Kalyan is one section, and then the tracks bifurcate. The northeast section goes towards Igatpuri, and the southeast section comes towards Pune. So this particular section, what you see here, is it was built around an Austrian Ghat section called Semmering Pass. It was just about being ready. It was also it had similar topology, and it had similar gradients and similar challenges. So they looked at Semmering Pass, and they got the idea of doing the Bhor Ghats. And Semmering Pass in around 1920 was being electrified. So they said, okay, this is a good place it's a good model for doing electrification. So the first electrified track in India was Mumbai to Pune and Mumbai to Igatpuri, and it was electrified at 1500 volt DC. Now, what you see here is this is a road bridge which takes you across. Further, there is one more road bridge which you can see here, the lighter columns, and you can see the stone arch structure. Now, the stone arch structure is not a road bridge, but it's an aqueduct, because to power these electrical catenary and electrical trains, you had to build a system of dams and generating station, hydro generating station. So all of you who have traveled on the road from Pune to Mumbai have seen the giant dam on the right side before Lonavala. It's called the Valvan Dam. Now behind Valvan, north of Valvan, is another dam called Chirota Dam. They're separated by a mountain range, and so those two dams feed water into this aqueduct, which is taken by pipelines down the slope of Bhor Ghats into Khopoli. And Khopoli even today is generating power from these Tata Power owned utilities. So what you see here is how power is generated for the... Sir, can you please silence? Vijay Rana, sir, please. Yeah. So this is... from 1929 till 2010, we had 1500 volts DC as the overhead voltage. Then the whole country and Mumbai area changed to 25,000 volts AC. And now system everywhere in India is 25,000 volts AC. And electrical locos go everywhere to everywhere without having to change. Let me show you the next slide, which shows you the Google Earth view of Lonavala station. This is the Lonavala station. I just switch on my pointer so that you guys can see it easily. Okay, this is Lonavala station, and you can see the footover bridge, and this is that aqueduct that I was talking about. So Valvan Dam is somewhere here, north east of this place, and this water flows across the railway lines, and it flows behind the housing colonies and the bungalows in Khandala, and it goes to a place called Forbay installation. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slides. And it is to the tribute of Tatas who have built so much of infrastructure and power generation capability, and that has helped our country to grow to where we are today. And it is still this Walwhan Dam, Shirota Dam, the power station in Khopoli, it's all owned by Tata Power. Today, of course, being a national grid, we get power from a variety of sources when it comes to us. But at that time, it was owned by Tata and it was operated by Tata. What I'm showing you here is a view of the pipelines coming down the slope. This particular bridge is called Tata Bridge. It's not of anybody's surprise. And this is the pipeline which will, the Khandala is somewhere on the right side. And this pipeline under gravity, because Tata has built something called tail race dams. So they use the natural, the altitude of the place. So Murshi Dam, then Bhira Dam, all these dams around Pune, Bhivpuri, Pune, Mumbai, they use the fact that you have so much of mountains to trap water, you have so much of rainfall, and then generate power out of it. So Maharashtra has never been short of power. We have always had a lot of power, including hydroelectric power. And that has helped the industrial development of our state, of Maharashtra. Okay, so this is crossing Tata Bridge. It's called Tata Bridge by the railways. And what you see here is a practice which is followed in the Ghat, that you have a double diesel hauled freight train, which is descending the grade. And you have three locomotives which normally push the train up the Ghat. We will discuss that in detail later on. But right now, these three locos have been attached in the front of the train, and they are used to provide braking power. First of all, these trains are generally operated by freight train drivers who are lesser experienced, whereas the Ghat drivers who work these locomotives are highly experienced and they know their section. So their section starts at Karjat, it ends at Lonavala yard and finished. That's it. They just shuttle back and forth between these two sections, and they know the section, they know the gradient, they know the pitfalls, they know where to pick up the power, how to brake. Additionally, these locomotives are provided with something called dynamic brakes, and those dynamic brakes help to not use frictional brakes. So they're electrical brakes, and they provide a retardation by the motor so that the train can follow a steady speed down the slope. So generally 99% of the time these locomotives just push the train up the Ghat and then they return back light. They go without load. But often these trains are prepared in the Lonavala yard, and especially freight trains, if they are loaded, will have braking locomotives ahead of them, and they will go to they'll go to Karjat and they'll be cut off, and then these diesel power will haul it to the destination. Okay, another feature that I forgot to tell you about is these towers. These towers are called Southeast 1 and Southeast 2. Now these carry electrical power from Mumbai in those days. Now this picture is from 2010, and that time this used to end at Ghorpadi, which is in Pune near Blue Diamond, and south of Pune we didn't have electrification. Now we do, and this would be continuing. But these were the two pylons which were built in GIPR days, which carried power to the railway line. So all the substations on the line, you have one at Khandala, you have for DC, of course, the voltage was very low, 1500 volts. So the electrical engineering rule is W is equal to VI. So for the same wattage, if your voltage is low, your current has to be very high. So high current means high line losses, etc., etc., etc. So you had frequent substations. You had many substations in the Ghat, which will be another presentation. We will talk about that, electrical distribution in the Ghats. We'll discuss that in another presentation. But right now, it suffices to because these towers were built in 1929. And since then, these have been demolished or they've been sidelined, and two new towers have been built. But if you went to these towers, you could see markings of GIPR, and the marking was in enameled color, in the sense that that plate is still not rusted, and it still has the colors. It is as if it is 10 years old. So it's been in the rain for almost 100 years outside salinity, but still those plates are in remarkably good shape even today. This is a view of the same area, slightly ahead of that. What you see here, there are many features that you are seeing now. Again, to recollect the topology, this is the up track carrying the descending traffic only. This is the bidirectional midline which is coming. Tunnel number 50 is this one. This is tunnel number 48. Which is we will discuss tunnels in detail in another slide ahead, but this is almost on top of tunnel number 48, and what you see here is a waterfall. Now this waterfall is a perennial source of water. It's not natural. It's a part of the leakage which comes from the Tata owned 4-bay installation, and the Tata pipelines start their descent immediately after this. But there is some amount of leakage, some amount of overflow which occurs in the 4-bay installation. So that aqueduct which I showed you earlier ends in the 4-bay installation, and 4-bay installation is where that there's a pond and it gets converted into the pipelines, the closed pipelines. But the amount of leakage here is dumped into the valley, and people in the valley use it for drinking. So it's a sort of big ecosystem that the Tata Power serves. And what you see here is also uh, uh, just give me 1 second, somebody at the door, just 1 second. Apologies, sir. I'm alone in the house. So, okay. So, what we are showing here is there is a third track which is inside this mountain. So, the third track is inside a tunnel which is running here. And why, like Ashish Kuelkar, whom many of you know, and Apurva Bahadur in their 40s actually crawled down the slope. And why did we crawl down the slope is something which I'll talk about all this thing. And it looks easy that we just come down, but once that weight is pulling you down and you get trapped here, then we walk this wall. Now this wall is higher than the locomotives. That's with the backpack and everything, we walk trying to get to the rail level. Now, why did we want to get to the rail level is another interesting fact. Here, if you can see the yellow and black marks, is a service tunnel. So, like I told you, there's a railway line inside this mountain, and this is a service tunnel which serves this particular tunnel of 2.5 kilometers, which is called 25C or tunnel 49 down. So we wanted to walk back to Khandala to catch our train, but we didn't want to walk back by this track. We wanted to walk back by this track, which is inside the tunnel. So again, this is from 2010 when we were slightly younger, but you can also see the service tunnel entrance. I'll show you a better view of the service tunnel in a later slide, but this is what you will see if you climb high enough. This is a view sometimes from 1920. This guy is talking about 26. So 26 is the tunnel which goes out from Khandala. And it's a semicircular, it's almost a kilometer long tunnel, and it opens here. This is tunnel 25, and tunnel 24 is below the express highway. If you start in a car, if you start in a road vehicle from Khandala, you will travel through two tunnels which are on the highway. Now, those two tunnels also have a deep railway connection, which we are going to talk about later. And as soon as you emerge from that tunnel, you have on the left, you can see the railway line. So this is a location which is it's ahead of this place. So those tunnels where that particular tunnel 24 is below the highway. What I wanted to tell you is those 24, 25, 26 are the tunnels which were built around 1920, 21 they started, when they realized that electrification is coming, and then we can't have, we had something called a reversing station earlier, which I will talk to you in a later slide. There is no way to, linearly explain this. There are a lot of facts which go back and forth. So you can see the waterfall, which I showed you in the earlier picture also here. You can see the southeast one, southeast two also here, but you don't see the electrification because that could be done at a later stage. Now, in those days, you had trains which had a steam loco in the front and a steam loco at the back, and you can see the action which is occurring here. In those days, you didn't have another tunnel inside this mountain, so this would be the down track, and this would be the up track. Finished. Only two tracks. Okay. We're going to talk about something called a catch siding, which is a feature of the Ghat. Now, it's a steep track which is into the mountainside, and the purpose is to catch any train which is run away. I will explain to you in pictures, and you have this is the view of a catch siding, this particular thing at Khandala. So you have three tracks at Khandala. One is merging here. You can see the third track coming here. So you have one here, one on the other side, and one on the other side of that. So three catch sidings. And the operation is that if a train comes down the slope, it is expected to halt at the station or the signal, the cabin which is previous to this. And it has to prove its brake power. If the train is not able to stop because the brake power is poor or due to any reason, then as a default, it will be switched on to this track and it will be arrested. Now, it's happened a few years back. At Nagnath, we had Hussain Sagar Express, which is coming towards Mumbai, and a wrong point was set, in the sense there was a paper clear ticket, and the train went into the catch siding maybe 50 meters, and then they could back the train and then they could touch it right. But such things do happen, and there this particular, although this track is not used, it's a great safety feature to have. Earlier, we used to have spring-loaded points which prevented a rollback of a vehicle. Suppose a train is climbing and the loco fails and it is rolling back, or if a coupling fails and it is rolling back. Now, a lot of procedures that you see in the Ghat are a result of work, of accidents which have happened, near accidents which have happened, modification of procedures, and you are continuously learning to maximize the safety in the realm of the equipment that you have. So what you see here is, when we say that such and such accident happened, okay, if such and such accident happened, the railways reviewed what went wrong and how it should not happen again. It's the same thing for any healthy ecosystem. Aviation industry is also built like that. If an accident occurs, the idea is to understand what went wrong and how to prevent it happening in the future. So railways is like that. Railways is the mother of all systems in India, because they have all rules which are written. There's a rule number for it, and all the eventualities are counted for that. If you have what I'm trying to say is that all these things, procedure that we're talking about, the train runs away, then what do you do? If coupling fails, then what do you do? They're all put in paper, in black and white, and those rules are followed to the letter. That's the railwayman's duties to do that. So what you see here is the catch siding, and the train would stop at Khandala, which is about 200-300 meters from this place, and the signal would be red. Now that signal is controlled by a relay. So even if the station master wants to send the train ahead, the train has to stop for its mandatory 1.5 minutes or whatever that period is, and then the signal turns green. In that signal turning, the points which are by default switched to this gradient will switch to the main line, and the train would go on its normal path. So prior to some time, we had spring-loaded points. So if a train was to part and it would roll back, so that spring-loaded point will catch this train which is rolling back and again transfer it back to the cat siding. So once the train passes ahead, the points would be, by spring, it will go back to the cat siding. So that used to be the case. I've seen that earlier, maybe 20 years back, but I'm not sure today if that spring loaded point still exists, because the loads of the trains are continuously increasing. And spring loaded points may not be able to handle that sort of load. It requires a lot of maintenance. So that was the system of this. In Bhor Ghat, you have cat sidings. You have it at Khandala. Then the second one is at Monkey Hill. Third one is either at Thakurwadi or Nagnath. So at these three places, the train has to stop come what may. If a train is going on the up line, it need not stop at Monkey Hill. There is a system that has been created. We will talk about that later. When you climb into the cat siding, you see historical artifacts, because this track is going to be used only in an emergency. So it's not maintained to the levels of the regular tracks. So you find, these are cast iron chairs from 1893. Would that impress you? Or would a cast iron chair from 1884 impress you? And also the rails are, in some places, are bull-headed rails. They look like figure of 8. Now they are from the GIPR days, so they are more than 100 years plus old. But it's a great thing to walk into the cat siding, and then you see a lot of artifacts which you would have normally missed. The next slide shows you a view of the cat siding at Monkey Hill. So these are the two tracks, the down track that is coming from Mumbai, and the bi-directional track. This is the new track which goes around. This is the Bheran Plateau. And this Bheran Plateau and the Natsa Dongar, which is after this, form the bulk of the mountains in this section, in the Bhor Ghat itself. There are a few more mountains further towards Mumbai, but in our section, these are the two mountains that we're looking at. This is the cat siding. So again, there are 3 cat sidings here to take train. If to catch arrest a train, which goes, I'm talking. There are 2 cat sidings because the middle track is bi-directional. The down track doesn't have a cat siding because it doesn't need it. The train will never go in that track in the descending direction. And so this is the view of the Monkey Hill cat siding. And the section is OHE wired till here after that. So this is a notice asking the loco not to go ahead of this point, electric loco. Of course, the loco will normally not come into this section, but if for some shunting operation it does, then this is a warning for the crew to stop ahead of this place because the section is unwired. The next slide shows you, I meant to cover the section between Lonavala to Monkey Hill, but I'm just breaking my own self-imposed rule and showing you the cat siding at Nagnath. Here is the Natsa, this is the Gambhir Nath caves, which I have told you. Everybody says that it's all ancient. So everybody says, oh, Ved Purana ke time se hai, vagara, vagara, but we don't know the real history. In any case, we are not here to look at the history of that, but of the railways. So it's been around for a longer time, and very strangely, Natsa Dongar is the mountain on the left. You can see this cut. This is the joint of the 2 mountains, and this is actually the Bheran Plateau. So Natsa Dongar is not in the, the Gambhir Nath caves are not in Natsa Dongar, but in the Bheran Plateau. So someday I'll go there and find out why is the naming in the wrong, why is the location here and the name of the mountain is different. So here is the banker which is stopped at, this is the Nagnath cabin, and this is the Nagnath cat siding. Now, to my left is the service tunnel between the between this cat siding and Thakurwadi, which I will show you in the next slide. This is a view of the service tunnel, and so if the workers who have done their shift or who are taking over the shift from Nagnath. Now, Nagnath doesn't have much facility. So most of the people stay in Thakurwadi. So they climb the cat siding, they get into this service tunnel and walk on the other side. This tunnel in 2010 also carried the traction cables for 1.5 kV DC. So you can see POS and NEG, that is positive and negative, because it used to be DC. So it is sensitive to polarity. And the substation for this section was at Thakurwadi. Since then, it has been demolished or it has been decommissioned. And now, because 25,000 volts is a much higher voltage, the amount of current requirement is reduced. So you have much fewer substations in the Ghat section, and you have much less voltage drop. And like earlier on, the WCG2 locomotives would draw thousands of amperes of current because the voltage was so low. But now the current is 80, 90 amperes, which is not much of a drop in the OHE, the catenary. So this system of this tunnel being used to carry the traction cables from Thakurwadi into Naganath section has been stopped. But the tunnel still exists and people use it on a daily 24/7. It's in use. It's lit in the inside so people can walk. I'll just talk about the operation of trains in the Ghat. Operation of the train is obviously the biggest factor you can think about is the gradient. So 1 in 37 is the limit of it's a limit of addition working. What I mean by addition is like where you have no other aids for the friction. You always have a rack railway like the one you have in Uti, and that railway has got a cog in the middle. It has a rack and pinion system for assisting in the gradient, but here it is addition work. And what you see here is a view out of Palasdhari, which is at the bottom of the Ghat, but it shows you the working of trains in the section. You can already see the gradient rising. There are 2 locomotives in the front, and there are 3 locomotives which are pushing the train. So what I wanted to talk about is every train in the Ghat has to have a banker. I mean, it has to be banked. It has to be pushed from the rear. The system is that from Karjat yard or from Karjat platform, these guys start pushing the train first. And they push the train till the first crossover and the train comes onto the main line. By that time, the lead driver is doing nothing. He's just sitting, he's having a vada pav, he's having a cup of tea, he's taking a break, because a train which has worked from Mumbai to Karjat has, they haven't had a break. They may have had a continuous run till this place. So this is where the drivers have a small snack. And they do nothing. They just acknowledge the horn and the train starts pushing from the rear till it comes into the main line. Now, this is to ensure that the bankers have the traction control. These are not multiple united, but the fact is that the train is being moved under the direction of the bankers. Once the train comes into the main line, the lead locomotive opens to series parallel combination or some partial combination to keep the speed limit of 55 for freight trains or 60 for passengers, and they maintain that. Now you have 3 banking locomotives here. They are multiple united, so the crew of this bankers are in the last locomotive. So you have a driver and you have an assistant driver here, and you see one more person in the first locomotive. So when you have 3 locomotives, you are provided with an additional assistant driver who has to monitor the function of the other 2 locomotives and help in case there is a problem, because there's a lot of work in keeping track of the locomotive, the gauges, the amount of controls, safety controls. If anything happens, if this train is to stop on a gradient, brakes may not be adequate. The standard practice is that if this train is to stop at, say, Thakurwadi, these locomotives will be kept in the 3rd notch and they will be kept in power till for some time. I mean, basically, the motors are passing current into the. So they are live. It's equivalent to you stopping on a slope with your car in the first gear with half clutch. So you know that there is a time limit for which I can do it. After that, my clutch will burn out or my engine will overheat. So if the train has to stop for sustained periods, then they have to apply wooden wedges. They have to apply all the parking brakes. They have to pin down number of wagons, etc., etc. So those procedures have to be done. Um, but normally you need people for that, and that's where the second guy comes into play. You need the second guy for doing all these procedures in case there is a stoppage in the Ghat. Normally that person may not be required, he'll be only doing observations and everything. But if there is a problem that the train stops, then this guy would be very invaluable, because the driver cannot leave his seat because he's sitting at one place. He has to control everything. His assistant will be running around, this guy will be running around, and they will be figuring out how to get the train started. Another thing is that this guy is driving blind, in the sense that what he sees in front of him is another locomotive. So all that he has is the brake pressure gauge and the ammeter. Now, there are such experts that by these two controls, of course, today they have walkie-talkie, but when we started rail fanning, there was no walkie-talkie. And walkie-talkie doesn't work throughout the section. It may work in some sections, it may not work in some sections. Or your walkie-talkie clarity may not be very good. Or the lead loco may be in a tunnel. So there'll be no walkie-talkie coverage. So just by looking at the brake pressure gauge and the ammeter, they can tell what's happening. So although these guys are watching out for the signals which are given for this train, if due to any reason this guy starts dropping, suppose there's a cow which comes across, or that person sees a boulder, or there is some reason in some failure in his loco, or the rake starts dragging or something, so he applies brakes. So this guy sees it on the brake pressure and he also applies brakes. And then it is this guy's job to hold the train from rolling. Of course, the lead driver will also drop the brakes, everything. But generally, the Ghat drivers have a lot of responsibility. This is part of the operation. This is banking. That means pushing up the train, and it's helping. I'm showing you now the braking operation. This is a train near Palasdhari, and you have three bankers coming down the slope, and you have two diesels, and you have another train behind it. So this guy is actually crawling down the slope. These three locos are on full dynamic brakes, trying to keep speed limit. These two diesel locomotives also, they've got their dynamic brakes on, and they are helping to keep the speed check to whatever speed limit of this section. And as explained earlier, at every curve, sorry, I forgot to tell you one thing, that at every curve, the driver and the guard look back at the rake, and the guard looks up in the front of the rake, and they check that the train looks okay. You know, there's no smoke, there's no sparks. You cannot see one vehicle which looks tilted. And they, so every curve, every significant place, like where they can look back at the train, but over viaducts, and significant places in the tracks, they look at the track, they look at the train behind or the train in front from the guard's point of view, and they exchange flags with each other or green light. Now, which means that there is even more workload than we anticipated. It's not that the guard is doing nothing. He's continuously monitoring the train, the safety of the train, and the crew look back, and once they see the green light from the rear, and they look that the train is okay, they tell each other "Gadi barabar" or "train right." So that's another spoken nugget that you see it in the cab, you know, like "Gadi barabar ho gaya," that everything is fine at the rear. So here this guy is exchanging the flag, and obviously the diesel is exchanging the flag, and the rear the guard is exchanging the flag, etc., etc. So this is a symphony, a ballet which goes on every place all the time in the railways. Here is a very rare scene. This is a brake van special. Now what you see here, this is from 2008. Like I told you, every vehicle which climbs the Ghat must have power at the rear, a live power at the rear. So you have three locomotives which is 4,200 HP each, and you have two locomotives which are 2,600 HP. So it's something around 17,800 HP power just to move two brake vans of 10 tons each. But there's a history about these brake vans, why they were hauled separately as a train. And you have these were four-wheel BVG class brake vans. They weighed very less, like I told you, 10. So it was okay for the rest of the country that you could use these for. Even today, you have BVG class brake vans which are used in freight trains in the rest of the country. But when you have gradient and you have a very heavy train in the front and you have massive power from the rear, the bankers are pushing, these four-wheel brake vans had a propensity to derail. And they wouldn't crumple, but they would derail. And in those days, there was no way to communicate that there is a problem. So the poor guard would, only buy a red flag if they could show that I'm derailed. But by the time they realized that there is a problem and they would halt the train, many kilometers of track are known to have been ripped because the flanges are now riding on the sleepers. And of course, the disruption of the movement, that's another issue. So at least in Bhor Ghats and probably in Thal Ghats also, they decided that the brake vans will be disconnected from the rake and they'll be sent as a separate train. So this is one of the rare sites where you see only brake vans being sent as a separate train. And you can see an enormous amount of power. Now, what happens is that you have coupled sets of locomotives. So you may not need so much of power to push, say, a passenger train weighing only 1,200 tons. Vijay sir, please silence. What you see in the Ghat section are you see multiple locomotives hauling a very light load, and that happens because the locomotives are coupled for the maximum weight of the trains which go through it, and they're not going to remove a few locomotives because a lighter load is being pushed. What they do instead is they shut off one or two of the locomotives. So if you have a very small train, then you will find that the two leading bankers don't have their pantographs raised, and only the rear one is live. So, but in any case, the positive control is always from the last locomotive, from the front cab of the last locomotive. Now, of course, you have 8-wheel brake vans, which don't have this buckling, derailment problems, and they can take the entire load of, of buffing, which is pushing as well as braking. And so the brake vans today in 2022 there is nothing like a brake van special train, though the four-wheeler brake van still exists in India and it's being used in other level sections of the Indian Railway where you don't have a banker. Okay, what you see here is a view of Bunky Hill Yard, and you see a train being pushed. These are WCAM3 dual voltage locomotives, which are a specialty of the Mumbai-Pune Igatpuri region. Why did we talk about dual voltage? Because earlier on, prior to 2010, we had 1500 volts OHE, and rest of the country is 25,000 volts AC. So the 1500 volts DC had a 2-bar pantograph, and the DC, because the current is higher, and the 25,000 volts AC had a single bar pantograph. So two different type of pantographs. This loco had DC control gear like resistors and all that, as well as a transformer and a rectifier. So they were pretty sophisticated locomotives. WCM3, I think they've been renamed as WAG7M or something like that very recently. And now all of them are pure AC operation. Now, what this train is a BCC cement carrying rake, which generally originates near Wadi Junction, near Hyderabad, Shahabad. So that's a area where you have a lot of stone and they crush the stone, and there are ACC cement factories there. And that ACC cement is made at Wadi. but it is sent to Kalamboli, which is New Panvel. So these trains carry bulk cement in the sense that they are filled with cement powder, and in the downhill direction, um, they are loaded. And these wagons have a speciality that the unloading is done by air pressure. So you pump a very large volume of air pressure, and at the bottom you have a hopper, and the cement powder just falls into the silo. So that's how these wagons are, and they're privately owned by the cement companies themselves. And one more feature that you see here, history of the Bhor Ghat is that first you had 2 tracks. Then in 1980s, you had 3 tracks. There were a lot of rearrangements and all that, but 2 track, 3 track remained. For instance, the newest track in this section, if you can see, this train is actually curving and going on the left. So that is the newer track in the section between Monkey Hill and Lonavala. Now, this track here is the newest track section from Monkey Hill down the Ghat, because this will go by the southern flank of the 2 mountains. So this is where the exchange of the new section, sometimes it's on the left, sometimes on the right. Now, if you look carefully, you can see this track, which also curves and meets this track. This is the bidirectional mid track. So earlier on, this track will just go straight and go with this track. And this is a new track. And here there was another track which curves and becomes this track. So you see these kinks in the track at Monkey Hill. And that is because in a very tight shelf, there is a very little place on the shelf between mountains to create another track. So sometimes the space is on the left, sometimes the space is on the right. So they keep exchanging the sides. A lot of streamlining has occurred as the railways have started, utilizing the systems, and they've smoothened out the kinks. But these things remain. Rationalization of the assets. So it's one of those things. So what you see here is the kink, and the train is now curving on the left and carrying on. The track is same, but earlier on it used to go straight prior to 1980s. Okay. This is a view of light bankers. By light, I mean that they are just going by themselves. Normally, these banking locomotives or helping locomotives, they work between Karjat to Lonavala. They leave the train at Lonavala and then they go back light. So this is what you can see here. This train is going back light. You can see the 3 tracks. This is the up track. This is the bidirectional mid track. And here's the down track climbing into Lonavala yard. And 24 hours a day, you have trains moving on these tracks. You have about 160 train movements every day. Of course, I'm talking about pre-COVID, but that thing is coming back on the thing that almost all trains are now operational. And even in COVID, the freight trains were very much operational because they had to carry a lot of goods. In Lonavala yard, you have a full examination of the train before it's let down. I'm talking about freight trains. Passenger trains, of course, there's no examination, but the brake power, the condition of the brake shoes, because after this is going to be a very severe down gradient. So before the train leaves Lonavala yard, it is checked for brake power, and locomotives which couple ahead of it for the helping it down the gradient also couple at the yard. But these are just light powers going into the going down the Ghat to Karjat to take another load. Let's talk about tunnels. Tunnel is a very important part of our Ghat section. When it started, Bhor Ghat had only 28 tunnels, but later on it became 52. Today's count is 52. And because of the extra line and ruling out of the kinks, this is a map of the area. This is Khandala station, KAD, and this is the highway which comes from Pune and goes to Mumbai. Earlier on, the track, these 2 tunnels which are on the road today were railway tunnels, and the train would come from Mumbai. These 3 tunnels, that is 48, 50 and 51, are built in 1920 to 1929. So the train would come here, it would reverse, and it will go along this path into Khandala, and it will join the tracks somewhere here. So we will talk about that in a future slide with another slide here. But right now, what you can see is on the down track, there's the track to Pune. You have 152 down, that's the last tunnel. Then when you leave Khandala towards Mumbai, you have 51 up and mid. Now this is it is a semicircular tunnel of almost a kilometer, which carries both the tracks. So this is one tunnel. Uh, this is the old set of two tracks, and you have another tunnel. Do you remember that view from the top where I was showing you a waterfall? The waterfall is somewhere here. And here you can see this is the line. This line which you see straight is the pipelines of the Tata Dam to Khopoli. Khopoli is in that direction. It crosses the tracks at a place called Tata Bridge. Okay, and you have these two tracks which go under the express highway in a small tunnel called 48 up mid. So because it's carrying the up as well as mid tracks. Now you have the new track which was laid in 1980s, which has a tunnel called Tunnel 47 down. So this emerges under the express highway, which I'll show you an image later on. And it goes into the longest tunnel in this section, which is 49 down, or it used to be called Tunnel 25C in the earlier nomenclature. And this is a 2.5 kilometer long tunnel. It's quite amazing to walk through. It has two ventilation shafts, and I showed you a service tunnel. So this is a service tunnel from which you can walk into the tunnel number 25C or tunnel number 49 down. And this is for, of course, getting the equipment in, or if there is an emergency evacuation, then you don't have to walk the entire 2.5 kilometers. You can walk only here and go inside that. And so this is the map of the area for your guidance. If you have gone by the non-toll or rather low-toll road to Mumbai or two-wheelers, then you remember this tank outside Khandala station. So that's still there. This is a view of the one of the tunnels in the upper Bhor Ghat, which has 6 tunnels. And this is the portal of tunnel 47. Now, this is a 365 meter long tunnel, which starts in Monkey Hill Yard, and it will open just after the express highway. So express highway is just behind this locomotive. And there's a train on the bidirectional midline. It's a banker pushing a train. And here is the down track, which is going to Pune, and here's the up track going towards Mumbai. Here's a view which will help you to understand where you are. This is a train leaving tunnel number 47, and this is the non-toll express, the part of the highway. This is the toll road, which is at the bottom. So as soon as you come out of the road tunnels from Pune side, you will be on this road if you're taking the expressway, and you will see the tracks below you. So this is a view from that section. And this guy will go into the longest tunnel. This is the substation of Khandala, which powers the most of the Ghat section, the upper Bhor Ghat section. Okay, this is the same train. Now this is going into the 2.5 kilometer long tunnel number 49 down, or old number is 25C. And from 1982 till advent of Konkan Railways in 1998, this used to be the longest railway tunnel in the whole of the country. And it has jet fans for ventilation, and it has 2 ventilation shafts, and it has a service tunnel, which I showed you earlier. In those days, of course, now, and because of the road tunnels, you know what a jet fan looks like. But in those days, it used to be space age, that you have a fan inside the tunnel to clear the vapor which the locomotives generate. I'll show you views of that. Now we're going to see views from inside this 2.5 kilometer tunnel. done extensive tours inside this tunnel on top to map out the topology, to figure out how it actually looks. So the experience is that you are walking in complete darkness, and suddenly you see a shaft of pale blue light, and that's where you're below the one of the ventilation shafts, and you can see the sky above. And so we took the GPS coordinates of this place, and then on another expedition we went on the top. So this is Ashish finding the ventilation shaft of the first ventilation shaft on the tunnel number 25C or tunnel 49 down. And this is in dense foliage. And we passed this place maybe 3 or 4 times within 100 meters of this. And there were some people who lived nearby. What happens is that there's a Christian prayer house there. So everybody's praying, then we don't want to disturb them. Then there is one sort of a holiday home where Mumbai people come and stay for the weekend. So that's the crowd we asked. Do you know of a well which is nearby? So he said, oh yeah, well. So he took us by the hand and he took us to an actual well. I said, no, we don't want a water well. We want a well. It looks like a well, but actually there's no water inside. So one of the caretakers of that place said, oh, it's just here. So 50 meters from that place, he showed us this. Otherwise, we would have not found this. And even today, I keep looking for it on the Google map, but I'm not able to find that thing. The other ventilation shaft is very clearly visible in the Google Earth, but this one is pretty hidden inside the foliage. So this is the view from the outside view of the ventilation shaft. This is how it looks. This is the inside view of the second ventilation shaft. And what you see here are, of course, you see the ventilation shaft. You see the light from that shaft, and you can see these red lamps. If you can see this one, these are the optical controls for switching on the jet fans. I'll show you a picture of the jet fan later. So when a train goes by, they break a optical path and the fan starts. So the experience is that inside this tunnel is horrible. I mean, it's hot, it's humid. You feel bad, you feel drained of energy, and plus you're scared because it's very dark. Some places have these lights, some places don't have the lights, so you're completely dark. In fact, if any one of you want to experience what is fear, you should go inside this tunnel and shut off your torch, and you realize how small and how vulnerable you are as a rail fan. And to compound the problem is that all the trains will be coming behind your back if you're walking towards Khandala. So most of the time you're feeling sick, you're feeling bad, you're feeling scared, you're feeling claustrophobic, but sometimes you feel good. So why do you feel good? Because the wind has started flowing. And when the wind has started flowing, that means the train is approaching and you better get out of the way, because the train pushes a huge amount of air in front of it. So even although this looks desolate, but there are people inside the tunnel who are there 24/7, and they are very alert. You be there 5 minutes, they're there to check who you are, what you're doing. We are rail fans. We have no official connection with the railways. So, but once we can prove that who we are and what we want to do and our sincerity, I think most of the people say, okay, fine, have a look. So this is the beauty of India. We are lucky as Indian Railway fans that they have taken us so close and they've allowed us to study a system which probably in another country I would have been shot for doing that. So when you feel good in a tunnel, that's a danger sign. Please look for a shelter and wait there till the train passes. This the gangman has told me. He said, when you feel good, जब हवा आने लगे तो आप साइड में खड़े हो जाओ. And because you don't hear the horn, you don't hear the rumble till it's very late. And in a tunnel like this, you have gutter on both sides, but you do have the trolley spaces, which are on a regular basis. And you can get into those spaces. They hold material, they hold trolleys, they hold people when the train is passing. So that's the experience in this place. Here is Ashish Koelkar once again. He's actually taking the GPS coordinates, and because his education is very high, so he has a penchant for taking notes. So he's writing down something which I don't know. In his pocket is still his lit torch. Now, when we explored this section in 2010, we didn't have LED torches or high power torches, so we had only the regular incandescent bulb torches. But he's just taking down notes. Just a view from the tunnel under the ventilation shaft. This is a view of the jet fan, and you have a control. Fortunately, this place is lit, so you can see the jet fan. This is a view from outside. This is John Money, my friend John. Those familiar with the area will recognize this peak as the Duke's Nose. And they say this is Salman Khan's bungalow, but I don't know. Nobody's ever called us in. Nobody invited us in. So this is the view of the second ventilation shaft. And inside this is a grill. So if you throw a stone, it will not go down. And it's way, way down. We've also seen the ventilation shaft inside Karbuda Tunnel, and that's an experience by itself in Konkan Railway. And you can see a very tiny train going below in the hole. And those are really giant ventilation shafts with the pressure blowers and everything. So the track is on this side. There's a track below this mountain. This is the down track. And there's a 25C tunnel, or tunnel 49 down is below our feet. This is the ventilation shaft this is the bi-directional midline. And you go inside and you'll meet tunnel number 49 going towards Khandala, this side, on the right side. Here is Ashish relaxing. I've just walked inside the service tunnel, and this is the track going to Khandala. You can see the gradient, the up gradient, and it's very nice and cool inside at this place. Once you go inside and the ventilation stops, then it's again hell. We're talking about reversing station. This is the last section of the presentation. Last few slides left, and this talks about the GIPR, Great Indian Peninsular Railways, the operation of the reversing station, which was also called Amrutanjan Bridge because there was an Amrutanjan advertising sign on top of the structure, and it's quite away from the railway line of present, and many people do not know the function. Sadly, this was demolished in 2020 to make place for the highway. This is the view before it was demolished. This is 2020. This particular nameplate was in many places. I remember it somewhere here. Now, as the highway expanded, they moved it here, and it commemorates the opening of this road. This nameplate is not for the reversing station. It is for this road. And it actually doesn't belong to the railways, it belongs to the road architect. So we are not very, because they're talking about the road which allows Konkan to talk to the highlands. So that is what the narration is. The railway track is here. And this is the 190-year-old structure which was demolished in 2020. So this is a view of the reversing station. These pillars that you see are the reversing station here and here. This is the whole reversing station. So you can see that it has a low level and it has a high level. And you can see this mountain. Just remember this mountain. I'll explain it to you in detail. This particular triangular peak at the back is the mount of Monkey Hill, the hill of Monkey Hill, what is called a Monkey Hill. It is called Shivba Hill or Shibi Hills in the old this thing. You can see the corner of the Bheran Plateau here. And the track is here, the railway track is here. And this is the non-toll road. So if you are on a two-wheeler, if you don't want to pay the expressway toll, then you'll be using this road. And the actual expressway is below this structure. It comes from this side and it goes below the arches of the reversing station. This is the view from 2014. This is the view between 1860 to 1929, where the reversing station was in view. If you can see the similarity between this mountain and this hill, which is called a battery hill, where the person in charge of construction used to stay, and this. So you can see what's going on. You have tracks coming from Mumbai, 2 tracks coming from Mumbai side down the slope, and then it went further at the back of this view, and then reversed, went into the tunnels, which are the road tunnels today. and then it reached Khandala. I'll be showing you a map of how it operated in those days. This is a view from a height. These are the tracks coming from Mumbai. You will go on to this section, which is the reversing section, and then you will go along to Khandala, which is on this side. This is the track, and this particular thing is a catch siding. So if a train is to roll down without brake controls, it would be held by this gradient. Same thing if a locomotive climbing, it loses power or the coupling fails, then it would also use this, and it will not it'll be safely held. So this is a view from Victorian times of how the reversing station was. And this road that you see is the express highway of today. And you can just about barely see the arches here. And this is the operation of the reversing station. I'll be showing to you in the next map. This is the map showing you the old and new alignment. So first, let us talk about the new alignment which exists today. You have Khandala station. It says to Pune. This water tank doesn't exist anymore, but this water tank exists even today. And today the track comes into this. This is the tunnel number 49 of today, which is almost a kilometer long semicircular tunnel. Then you have a small section, the views of the waterfall that is from somewhere top of here. So the waterfall is somewhere here. And then you have another tunnel, and then you have another tunnel below the road. So these three tunnels are in use today. You have another tunnel inside this mountain, which comes parallel to this track. This is today's scenario. There are two shafts which they talk about in this map, but Ashish and I, we have gone several times, but we couldn't find any. And anybody who knows about this history is now probably not around anymore. We do not know whom to ask. But at our age, we are the bridge between what happened in the past and what it is today. And it is our job to at least document these things and leave it for the future, because once the progress happens, they will just demolish a lot of structures and there'll be no records of what it was in the past and how did this come to be. Now, I want to show you the old operation. So prior to this, now this is what was done in 1929. This was opened in 1929. Before that, the train would come from Mumbai. It would climb this altitude. It will come onto the reversing station, and then it would reverse. It shows you this tunnel. Now, this tunnel number 24 is the road tunnel which you use in the express highway today. Old timers of the road will also remember a smaller tunnel ahead of the road, and that's long demolished. And now you have two express highway tracks here, and then this track would come and merge at Khandala station. If you drive from Mumbai to Pune, you will notice that the section from near this tunnel to Khandala has got hardly any gradient. Why? Because it's a railway track. It used to be a railway track, but now, of course, it's a road. So this is the operation of the track prior to 1929 and today. This is a view of Khandala station, where you can see that this is the present alignment. This is the time of the flux, where you had something going on here and most of the trains would go via the reversing station. So Khandala, the original station, could have been this, and then it will go, if you can see, this is the place. This is Khandala and it curves out. So this is Khandala and it curves out, and it will follow along the valley to the reversing station, which may be about 2-3 kilometers from here. And if you look at a film like Choti Si Baat, Rajeshri Pictures has put the entire Choti Si Baat on YouTube, out of which one section you will find an abnormally high number of hits. So that is the section which shows you views of Khandala station before 1980s, before the third track was built, and this track was still intact. And Amol Palekar gets off from a train coming from Mumbai, and he goes under a few parked wagons, and you can see this track and some bridges which existed in those days, they do not exist now. And you can see the Rajmachi Manoranjan Fort here at the background. And all the mountains look the same, but the landscape has completely changed. So today the train will just go straight and into those 3 tunnels which I showed you earlier, and it will go into Mumbai. So this is now converted into a road. So this is the history of Khandala in the Upper Bhor Ghats. Last 2 slides. This is the view of the inauguration of tunnel number 1 is in that thing, but it is the tunnel number 49. And this particular tunnel is, it looks like it was designed by the British, but actually it was designed by Tata Sons. And it was done by their construction company. So it could have been helped by the British, but the labor, the civil engineering was done by Indians. And you have Walchand Hirachand at number 1. And he is the managing director of Tata Constructions. Then he went on to form his own company, the Walchand Group, and Hindustan Construction Company, which is one of the biggest infrastructure companies in India today. They're in some amount of legal trouble, but they were there. Now, what you can see is this person with the center parting. There's a board here which shows the inauguration of this section. So this is the opening ceremony. If you look at the earlier, it says dinner is served here. This is this location. And this is the location in 2014, same tunnel. This is the plaque which exists today. And it just commemorates realignment of the Ghat to remove the reversing station. And these 3 tunnels, they cost some paltry sum of 25 lakhs, but that must be a huge fortune in those days. And it took several years, tens of years to make this section straight. A part of the reason was electrification, because we got electrification in 1929. And this tunnel is also inaugurated in 1929 because for heavy freight trains to come from rest of India into Mumbai, you needed electrification. And so you couldn't do reversing it. Reversing station is not conducive with electrification. So this thing was taken, and a very major kink in the operation of Upper Bhor Ghat was removed by the formation of these tunnels. What you see here is Dr. Ian Kerr. Now, he's an authority. He was an authority. He died last year. He passed last year in Indian Railways. He wrote a lot about Indian railway history. He wrote 5 absolutely seminal books about the history of Indian Railways. And in 2014, we were very privileged to take him there, because he had traveled through Bhor Ghat. He was a frequent visitor to India, but it needs a bunch of fools to take him and show him the actual, dirt of the ground. So this is Lala Mandavkar, Ashish Koelkar, Jayant, and me. Of course, we took him there and we showed him the various sites. And he said it's one of the best days of his life, because he had imagined it to be something. Then he had actually written about it, and he had researched about it. All that research was done probably in London, but here first time he put his foot on the ground and he saw the various views of the Bhor Ghat. So this is shot during his visit. Sadly, he passed last year. So with his passing, the responsibility of documenting of the Bhor Ghats comes to individuals like us. Because if we don't do it, the next generation will not be able to relate of what happened, what are we seeing versus how it was there in the before. So one of the tasks in the little time that we have left is to document Bhor Ghat section in great detail, and we plan to do that. I've come to the end of my presentation. This is the last view of a train diverting on the up track towards Mumbai. And I'll be very happy to take any comments, any questions that you have. Our motto is take efforts and not risks. So thank you so much. I'll stop the sharing now.
Thank you very much, Apurva. It was a brilliant presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Normally, I would have asked the presenter to stop at the end of 1 hour. But when you are presenting, you can even carry on for 2 hours.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Are there any questions? See, since we're already beyond our normal time, we'll only have a few questions.
Yes, sir.
Srinivas here, Apu.
Shini, bolo, Shini, tell me.
Am I to understand that there were 2 reversing stations, one on the Amritanjal bridge and the other one in Khandala?
Khandala is Amrutanjan Bridge, same thing. It's the only
Same
one.
thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yes, please.
One comment.
Yes, sir.
Although the section is electrified, I found
Yes.
most of your photographs are of diesel locomotives. I think you live up to your love of diesel locomotives.
Yes, sir. I mean, electric loco kya hai? Jana do, sir. We'll not talk about it. It's a dukti rah gaya. India is losing out by phasing out the diesel locomotives. But I'm in a section like Alnawar Dandeli. Usme din mein ek train jati hai, but that's electrified. I mean, I can understand the ambition that we want to have one system. Where do we have the electricity to run the country? Anyway, that's a political discussion. We shouldn't get into that. But yes, I love diesels without any hesitations. My email ID is also WDM2. So I would focus on that, but increasingly it'll have to be electric.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't have any diesel left.
Yeah, we don't have much diesel left. Yes, sir.
Tell me, hi, this is Raghuram.
Yes, sir. Yeah, boliye, sir. Bol, sir.
So wonderful. Now on the reversing station, so only one meaning, the operationally,
Yes.
see, unlike in the NG Darjeeling Himalayan Railway, where, or even in Japan and all, you would, the reversing stations, there would be two in quick succession. So the train sort of went back on its own and then continued in the next reversing.
That's a zigzag.
How was it done here? I mean,
That is a Z reversing. That's a Z reversing.
dead reversing, I know.
Yeah. So there's only half a reversing. Only
Right.
one reversing.
So no, would the loco
Yeah.
go back to the other side, or there were other locos kept?
No, there was a banker at the rear. So that banker would start pulling the train.
And
There,
then,
there were steam locos, right? You remember those very stubby
Yeah.
looking locos from GIPR? So one in the front, one at the back, very small train. So it would go there and then it would reverse back. Both the locos were manned. So all they had to do was reverse and then start on the other direction. So it would climb into the reversing station and the other loco, the points would change and then it will go on the other side. Actually, the top of the reversing station had a water tower. It had a turntable. It had places for people to stay. It had crew stations. It had probably an office. Now that was before my time, so one doesn't know the documentation. But someday we'll come across photographs from
so
the time
the banking loco would be facing the other way. The
It would-
banking loco would
Yeah.
be facing the other way, so it will become forward once at the reversing station.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So train would reverse and the other way around also. While coming from Khandala to reversing station, there'll be a loco in the front and a loco at the back. So it will come onto the reversing station and the loco at the rear will become a loco in the front and then go to Karjat.
Terrific.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Apurva.
Thank you, sir.
And it was a brilliant presentation. And as somebody has suggested in the chat,
Yes, sir.
we must convert it into a book. And the
Very
Rail
well.
Enthusiast Society will be very happy to publish this book.
Yeah, we would like to support you on this venture.
Yes, sir. We'll do that. In fact, just last week I was talking to Jayant Ramdasi, who's a Ghat driver, that I need to because I've done upper Bhor Ghat, I've done lower Bhor Ghat. I still have to walk about 3 kilometers. So that is left. And I've walked something before, so I don't have photographic evidence. So I need to go there with a fresh pair of eyes and get all the photographs. So we were just doing the research of how are we going to walk in that section. And because one track is in the tunnel, one track is outside. So I'll have to go into the tunnel, then come out. Then so one will have to traverse that section many times to check out. So what is physically feasible? What are the trains which will take us there and bring us out? Because it's in the middle of the section. So if there are no trains, the other walk is another 8 to 10 kilometers, which I won't be able to do today.
You wish you were 10 years younger.
I wish I was 20 years younger. I discovered too late that there is this wonderful thing called Indian Railways. Yeah, but it happens. Now, paisa nahi hota hai, you don't have a camera, you don't have the resources, you're too busy in your career. It's only after something settles down and you have adequate, and then you realize that you're too old to do anything. So, but then the youth of India is doing wonderful things, and you can see absolutely brilliant work that they're traveling a lot. Unfortunately, the focus is on videos rather than still images, but that's the sign of times, and people want to earn money from all the research. I don't have any such ambitions. I want to love railways, and I want to document them in the correct, unbiased view of not getting money into the picture. Yes, sir.
I only wish there were more people like you.
There are, sir. There are a lot of people. See, it's my enthusiasm is a part of somebody else's enthusiasm rubbing on me. So it'll rub on somebody else, and I have lots of people. I have a team of people who are willing to join me for treks. But बुड्ढे आदमी के साथ बुड्ढे आदमी अच्छा रहता है. No, the youth is not a good traveling companion, because they'll say, "Arey, itna bhi nahi chal sakta." He has to stop frequently for a break. So all those things, that affects. People of similar mental age and physical age should do the walking. So we are going to do that.
Oh, I am game for it.
Yes.
Last 3 kilometers, I'll join you.
Yes, certainly. आ जाओ. आपका तो सभी सब जगह पहुंचाना, आपकी तो ट्रेन वहीं रुक जाएगी. Not a problem. Yeah. Chalo, thanks so much. Yeah.
Nice one. Nice presentation.
Thank you, everyone. The presenter and the presentees. Thanks a lot. Now we will see you again in the next talk next month.
Yes, sir. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Yeah. Vinu sir, please share the recording with me.
Certainly.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Bye. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.